This is the video notes for lesson 13.2, solving absolute value equations. Hopefully you guys have already looked at the notes from lesson 13.1. We're going to take a look at example 1. Now when you see these absolute value symbols, hopefully it's a visual cue of what to do next. When my kids see these absolute value symbols, we just call them sticks for lack of a better word, we say 2 sticks, 2 equations. And here's how it works. You take the inside and you basically are going to set that equal to the positive answer. And then you're going to take the other stick and turn that into the other equation, which is the same exact inside, but now it's set equal to the negative of whatever's over there. So 2 sticks, 2 equation. You take whatever's inside, set it equal to 30. You take whatever's inside and set it equal to negative 30. And then you just do your thing. We are very good at this by now. Draw the wall, and we're just going to do our junk and divide. So again, we get 3x is equal to 25. Divide by 3. And one of our answers is 25 over 3, or if you prefer decimals, 8.3 repeating. Now the other side. Again, same old, same old. Get rid of the junk. So we get 3x equals negative 35, and divide. For x bar 3, for x bar 3. X equals, and again this turns into, if you want a decimal, 11.6 repeat. So with absolute values you are going to have 2 answers. They are not both necessarily positive or negative, or one positive or one negative. It's either or, just solve like we normally do. Let's take a look at another example. Example 2. As soon as I see this, I'm thinking, oh, we have to get these absolute values by themselves. Now this is the toughest part. We need to get those by themselves before we're allowed to do 2 sticks, 2 equations. So this becomes a junk and divide problem. We're trying to get this bracket, this term alone. So what's the junk? Of course the answer is the 8. So what we're really doing is solving for the absolute values. Get rid of the junk. So I'm going to draw my wall and do what we always do. Now, you'll notice that we haven't touched the absolute values yet. The rule is you have to get them alone or isolated on that side of the wall, totally by themselves. So we end up with the absolute value of 2x minus 5 equals 20. Now at this point, in my head, I'm saying 2 sticks, 2 equations. So here we go. First stick, 2x minus 5 equals 20. And now we know the other equation is 2x minus 5 equals negative 20. Now remember, these arrows from these sticks, it's not mathematical. It's simply a way to remember it. 2 sticks, 2 equations. From here, most of you guys are so solid on solving, it becomes a no-brainer. Get rid of the junk. Looks like 2x equals 25. Divide by 2. And x equals 12.5. On the other side, we add 5 to both sides. 2x is equal to negative 15 divided by 2. And our final answer is negative 7.5. So again, we have 2 answers. In this case, one is positive, one's negative. Alright, let's take a look at the most strange and questioned problem there is. When we look at this absolute value problem, we notice that there is a negative 8 that is hanging out in front. Now this is the most complicated problem for most Algebra 1 students. I'm going to take it off to the side. If I gave you negative 8x equals negative 72, and I said solve for x, all of you guys would say there is no junk, just divide by negative 8. So I want you to remember what you just did over here, and we're going to bring it back to this. Remember, we're trying to solve or get the absolute values alone. So this is the same thing as saying negative 8 times this thing. And if you look back over here, negative 8 times this thing. The way to get rid of a times is to divide. Whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. They cancel out, and you're left with absolute values of x minus 6. And in this case, we get 9. Now, something else you need to know. A lot of my kids said, can't we distribute the negative 8 to those? The rule is no. You're not allowed to distribute regular numbers with absolute values. It just doesn't work. You can't do it in math. That's the only reason why, because normally we would have distributed first. Okay, so to get rid of something right in front of the absolute values, we're going to divide. And again, once we get to here, most of you guys, no problem. 2 sticks, 2 equations. So x minus 6 equals 9. And x minus 6 equals negative 9. Draw the wall, and let's do our thing. Add 6 to both sides. X equals 15. This is nice because we don't have a divide step. That was just junk. Over here, same thing. Add 6, and we get x equals negative 3. So there's our 2 answers. Still comes back, if you think about it, to junk and divide. There was no junk over here, so we went back to the division problem. This next example really takes everything into account. Alright, so let's take a peek at this. Now remember, we're trying to get the absolute values totally by themselves. So, the rule is junk and divide, junk and divide. Here is the junk. This is the extra piece. So let's make it disappear. Subtract 12, subtract 12. We're still left with 4, absolute value 3x minus 8 on this side, and we end up with a 60 on this side. Now, that was the junk. Our next step is divide. Even though it looks strange, this 4 is in front of multiplied by the absolute value. So we're going to divide. Still comes back down to junk and divide. Whatever you do to one side, you do the other. So I get 3x minus 8 equals 15. And now the absolute values are by themselves. So the famous 2 sticks, 2 equations. 3x minus 8 equals positive 15. And 3x minus 8 equals negative 15. And again, once we get to here, most of you guys are no problem. That's the first one. And then the second one. So again, here's our answers. So it still comes back to junk and divide. This time we're trying to get the absolute values alone by doing junk and divide, and then 2 sticks, 2 equations. You are now officially ready to solve absolute value questions.